some weeks later. The main theme of our conversation that night was that Jesus' massive popularity among the Jewish crowds is not helping his main task down here on earth. There is a deep and strong desire in us humans, he explained, to be liked by as many people as possible. But the lessons of our history show that the thing a crowd wants is not always what the people in it really need. Since then, Jesus and his disciples have been keeping away from the Jewish territories as much as possible, travelling in places where they're not known, where they can talk in peace. At one stage, they returned to Bethsaida so that Peter and some others could catch up with their families. Within minutes of their arrival in the village, a blind man was brought to them, whose friends begged Jesus to heal him. Jesus was keen to avoid attracting the vast crowds of last month and took the man away from the village. He restored the man's sight and instructed him not to return to Bethsaida, but instead return across the hills. The following day, Jesus and the 12 headed north again, away from the Jewish villages. It was time for some serious talking. That was 4 days ago. Last night I joined the Sun and my boss for several hours of discussion. Jesus' miracle worker reputation has become a significant problem. Rather than floating on the fathomless depths of divine love, people are simply splashing around in the puddles of their selfish dreams. That's not the only hitch either. I'm not convinced that the 12 are ready for us to move into the next phase of our plan. My boss, whose faith in humanity has always outweighed my own, declared, "If any one of them has grasped the truth about my son, then we shall proceed. Do you understand, Oriel? However, if none of them have a clue, then we shall wait." Tomorrow is examination day. Which, if any of these 12 assorted males has understood who their leader really is? No doubt there are numerous animated conversations about this up in heaven. From my lonely isolation down here on earth, my bid goes on young John. He is the most intelligent of the 12. The following afternoon. After breakfast, we set off in the direction of Caesarea Philippi, in the northern valley of the River Jordan. As often happens, Jesus walked ahead, thoughtful and alone, while his followers chatted along behind him. After 2 or 3 silent miles, opening his spirit to his Father and listening to every nuance of eternal love, Jesus slipped a quick comment in my direction. "Here goes." And then he stopped and waited for the others to join him. "I have a question for you all," he announced as they approached. The 12 are always more comfortable with Jesus' conversation than they are with his contemplation. They were pleased to gather round him as they walked on, eager to be the one who could give the right answer to his question. It was not a difficult one. "Who are people saying that I am?" Jesus asked. A lively conversation followed, to which everyone made a contribution. A new prophet, an old prophet, the executed John the Dipper raised to life, Moses, Elijah. Philip reminded them all of the opinion of the Jewish leaders when he added, "A pain in the backside." "What about you?" Jesus asked as the laughter died down. "Who do you think I am?" Silence. This has been the subject of many late-night debates among the 12 when Jesus was safely out of earshot up a hillside praying. Jesus knew that. He also knew that it was time for them to make up their minds. It was not John, the thinker, who broke the silence, but Peter, the group's quickest and loudest mouth. What he said was something that he'd never mentioned in all the hours of their discussions on the subject. My attention was drawn to him a moment before he spoke. It was as if a small but piercing light had been switched on in the depths of his spirit. "You are the Messiah," he declared. "You are the Son of Almighty God." The rest of the 12 were astounded. According to Jewish law, what Peter had just said would be judged as blasphemy, and he could be stoned to death on the spot for saying it, but somehow they each knew that it was true. The same light began to shine in each one of them, and they were united in a momentary euphoria. Smiles broke out on the faces of the 12 friends. They knew that they had passed Jesus' test. They looked at each other, grinning and nodding. Jesus looked around the group, his face stern. When he spoke, his voice had a strength of purpose they'd not heard before. Do not tell this to anyone, he commanded. The 12 could not fail to hear the gravity in their master's voice, and their brief ecstasy of faith led directly into impending gloom as Jesus revealed, for the first time, the true nature of his mission on earth. I must suffer many things, he told his dumbfounded companions. The religious leaders will reject me and they will kill me. And 2 days later, I will be raised back to life. As Jesus spoke, Michael appeared silently beside me. He knew that when Jesus' words were uttered with human breath, the opposition would soon hear of them. And now they will know where our plan is heading. The chase is afoot. Michael looked around, searching the spiritual realm to see where the news of our boss's plan would be first picked up. I searched the spirits and minds of Jesus' chosen companions. Jesus' words tore through their hopes and dreams like arrows through soft flesh. It was as if I could hear the sound of 12 spirits imploding around me. Peter, once again the first to speak up, exploded with anger. "Don't be so stupid," he exclaimed. "We'll never let that happen to you." The others nodded and murmured their support for the leader of the fishing fleet. Jesus had been expecting a swift counterattack from the opposition, but he had not expected one to come from his closest friends. "Out of my sight, Satan," he ordered. The disciples recoiled in shock, bewildered by the sudden change in their master. Jesus saw the fear in their faces and controlled his feelings. "You do not see this the way that God sees it," he reassured me. "You can only see it from a human perspective." The 12 had passed their test, but only just. They have indeed grasped exactly who their teacher and leader is, but that is all they have grasped. For a moment it looked to me as though Jesus was an adult human setting off on a dangerous expedition with a group of babies who'd only just learned to walk. Was it wise, I wondered, for humanity's destiny to be left in the hands of these men? But then Jesus' words to his disciples echoed in my spirit. "I do not see this the way that my boss sees it. I can only see it from an angel's perspective." Jesus started walking again. His followers huddled close around him. As they walked, he tried to open up to them his Father's perspective, but they, faint with fear, took little of it in. Michael and I stayed where we were and watched the ragged little band disappearing down the stony track. Michael spoke. "They may not understand him, but they're still following him. That is all a commanding officer needs." I could not share either his optimism or his military insight. My mind went back to Jesus' own struggle with the nature and fear of death some months ago. I could not see Jesus as a canny and confident strategist, but only as a weak and vulnerable man. And now we are no longer protected by the secrecy of our plan. The opposition knows where we are headed. We've lost our strategic advantage.